Hey, everybody, and welcome to another edition to Sofia Speaks with the Latinx Education Collaborative. Listen, I'm so excited to be back. I took a little bit of a break. I was traveling abroad. I went to India and then I did a little stop in Paris. Yes, you heard that right. But listen, we are back on the airwaves, and I'm really excited to crack just a few more conversations in season 2 of season 5 of Ask an Educator with Latinx Education Collaborative. For those of you joining for the first time and may not know why I'm popping up on LEC's airwaves, listen, myself and the LEC family, we've been in cahoots for a little while now, from them inviting me to be a keynote speaker at one of their conferences, to being a former guest on Ask an Educator, to conducting workshops. And then they awarded me with some incredible recognitions like the Authenticity National Award. So we just thought that it would be like the next best thing to continue in on conversations, because what LEC aims to do is to amplify the Latinx voice in the K through 12 space. And they mean it. And I ain't even from KC, but they're like, listen, come through here, Ms. G, from the Chicagolands area. And that's what we're doing here. So listen, I always like to create a bit of a thematic framework for the guests that I have on the air. And so my next guest is going to represent this idea of alumni, right? We're talking about education, we're talking about the Latino educator, amplifying the Latino voice. But what does it look like for these Latino educators to return back to their home turf and really try to make a difference where they went to school? And we all know, and we'll talk about the research that points to that being so beneficial for our kids, specifically in communities of color. So listen, without further ado, I have a good friend of mine, my lunch buddy that I spent some time with during the school year at lunch and in the hallways, and just really working with our students at Morton East High School in Cicero, Illinois. I want to bring to the stage Miss Joy Davila, and let's just have a conversation. How are you, Miss Joy?
Hey, well, thanks for having me here. First of all, it's an honor for you to invite me to this conversation, but I'm doing good. How have you been?
Man, I've been busy. Thank you so much for asking. But you know what? It's a good busy. It's like we're getting in good trouble, some necessary trouble. And I'm just excited to be in this space with you and to have an incredible conversation. So let's get it started, right? Tell the people, man, like where you're from, who your people are, your cultural landscape. Tell us about Joy.
All right. So, again, my name is Joy, and I was born in Chicago, but raised in Cicero. Pretty much have lived in Cicero majority of my life. I would say minus a few years when I took a teaching job in a different city, a different area, and spent a few years out in Urbana. But then I came back, and my background is Latina, Latinx. My parents are both from Mexico, so I'm first generation. Both of my parents were born in Mexico. They immigrated at a young age.
Mm,
And I graduated from college in 2015 from Lewis University, and
nice.
then got my first teaching job right after. And I am on starting my 8th year already of teaching.
Wow.
3 years at Urbana High School, and then 4 years at Morton East, and I'm starting my 5th year this upcoming school year.
I love that. And you say 8 years, man. It's like, how fast does time fly, especially like in education? Isn't it true though? Like in the school year, it feels like, whoa, we are never going to get through the fall semester. But then it's like we hit spring and we're like, it's the slippery slope down to May. It's crazy, right?
Yeah, it really does. Like I look back on like my years of teaching, and I think about how quickly time has gone by. But like you said, during the school year, it's like, okay, we got to keep going, got to keep pushing through. And then spring break hits, and then, it like hit fast forward and we're going fast.
It's like totally bananas. But tell us about your journey to the classroom. You know, to be a teacher is definitely something that is a special decision, right? Because it really is something that if you do it right, you could really change lives, and you could really make a significant difference in the lives of students and their families, and even for generations. Like, as a first gen, I know that you could speak to that. But tell us, like your journey to the classroom, why education, and who can you credit?
All right. So I would say when I was in high school, I didn't really think that I wanted to become a teacher yet. I was actually more undecided. I didn't know what I wanted to do yet. And I think at that age, you're really young to like decide what my future career is going to be. And my focus when I was in high school was getting into college. So, I was trying to apply and FAFSA, scholarships, all of that, but I didn't really give too much thought as to what I wanted to do. And my first 2 years of college, I was undecided. I was like, what do I want to do with my life?
Yeah.
And when it comes to me, if I'm given so many options, I'm undecisive. And I thought, well, I can go into business, I can go into healthcare, I can become a teacher, I can do so many different things. And it was by the time of my end of my sophomore year, I had to decide. My advisor said, you really got to, pick a major because you're trying to graduate in 2 more years. So
Right.
what do you want to do? And I had a long conversation with my advisor, and I thought, you know what, education is has always been it for me because
Wow.
to credit, I would say pretty much all my teachers that I had from elementary school all the way through high school. I've been very fortunate to have amazing teachers in District 99, District
Yes.
201, and that have had a positive impact on me. And my parents too, I give them credit. They've always supported any decision that I've made. So I told them, hey, I want to become a teacher. And they're like, okay, you can do anything that you want to do. And I also liked school. So school is like an education and learning. That's my thing. I love learning. So I decided, you know what, I want to become a teacher. So, shout out to my parents, shout out to my teachers, pretty much all of them. I could list them, but that would take too long. But yeah, I would say that's my credit to my teachers and my parents.
I love that. And one of the things that Latinx education collaborative really amplifies is this idea of being teacher taught. Like, they have t-shirts and all the things. And so I love that there were teachers in your trajectory that inspired you, that motivated you. Man, that's awesome. And your parents being supportive, I love that. We've got some love in the chat coming through here. Brenda Lopez talking about, hi Joy, hi Sophia, with the big heart emoji with the hands. Listen, Brenda, you got to man down the comments right now until people trickle in. Okay, so we need some commentary so we can engage. That would be really cute. Thank you, Miss Lopez. Go ahead and shout out the people. Tell them to get on the airwaves. We need some participation and some love. But listen, not only are you an educator, right, but you have nestled yourself in bilingual education. And we've had robust conversations about this at lunch. And just me even coming to you for your professional point of view and your observations in the bilingual classroom. And just last month, that was my thematic focus, right? A deeper dive in bilingual education. But tell us about your story to this particular pathway, and what have you seen to be some challenges and things that you've had to circumnavigate?
So my first teaching job was for a bilingual slash ELO position. And the reason why I got that job was for two reasons, actually. One, networking. I was able to get a job at Urbana High School and through a job fair, and someone that I know at the district was able to help me get into my first teaching position. And two, there's such a high need for bilingual and ELL teachers, and I speak Spanish. So I did not have my endorsement for bilingual ed. And one of the things that attracted me to this job was the help to get that endorsement.
Mm,
In college, I wasn't really told about that endorsement. I just, got my, secondary ed um, secondary ed certificate, and I was able to teach 6 through 12 social studies, and that's it. And But that's what attracted me to this job. And I said, you know what? I think this will be a good experience. I'm going to use my skills as a bilingual educator and help an underserved population.
Mm.
And I taught there for 3 years at Urbana High School. And as I was teaching, I was also taking classes online in order to get the endorsement.
Mhm.
So I think it was really helpful to do that because not only was I learning, these different strategies to help EL students, bilingual students, I was also putting them into practice as I was learning. So my journey started pretty early with,
Wow.
this specific group of students, and I really love teaching EL students, bilingual students, multilingual students. um, yeah.
And so, what have been some challenges that you've seen this far? I know when I came in to interview you for a particular project that I was working on, you really talked about the lack of resources and the lack of text and curriculum in their native language, and you being able to use resources in English and in Spanish to teach your students. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I would say that is the biggest challenge I have as a bilingual EL educator is the amount of resources available.
Mm.
I do teach one class in Spanish, so I teach civics pretty much all day, except for one section, which is biliteracy civics. So I teach it all in Spanish.
Wow.
And when I teach that course, I have to either translate my own materials, my own resources, create my own, and kind of figure that out so that they can still get the same experience and learn the same content that I'm teaching my other classes as well. I would say it is, finding the resources. We have a textbook that for this course, but I don't really use it that much because I can't translate it. And even though there's a digital copy of the textbook, there's no way to translate the text for my students in my biliteracy class to use it. And we have explored options, but we haven't been able to find something that is equivalent to the text that my English speaking students have available. So
Wow.
it's difficult when it comes to resources. But overall, it is a class that I enjoy teaching because, we learn about, civics and politics and government, but in Spanish. And they get to practice their Spanish, and I get to practice my Spanish, and it's really fun.
I love that. And we talk about it, and we talked about it at lunch, how intimidating that sounds to me to teach an entire course in Spanish. When you first told me that over lunch one day, I was like, 100% en español, pero ¿cómo? ¿Cómo? Like, I would be like, I would literally, but I love what you said. One of the first things that you said was, but the students help me too. I love that, how they help you too. Like if there's a word that you're in conversation with them about, and you're like, is this how I say it? And a lot of them who Spanish is their first language, they're like, no, maestra, it's like this. And I love that. Like, did that happen often?
It happened a lot at the beginning because I hadn't been using Spanish in the academic setting ever, really. So when I started speaking in Spanish and teaching the class entirely in español, desde que empezaba la clase hasta el fin,
Hasta el fin.
I, would struggle here and there, and I would, think about like, is this how I say this word, or is it do you say it the other way? And they
Right.
help me out, and I think it's really a cool thing to do because you show the students that, hey, I'm not perfect either.
Yeah.
I'm also learning, and I you help me as much as I help you. So I really enjoy teaching the class in Spanish. It definitely allows me the opportunity to continue using my language. And Spanish was my first language as well.
Right. I love it.
And I, love teaching in Spanish.
I love that. And kudos to you. I think that that's such a beautiful thing, such a romantic thing for you to use your home language in the classroom and to be able to elevate your students. And the fact that your students helped you shows how much agency our multilingual learners actually have. They have agency, they are intelligent. They're just firing their brain on so many different pathways. They're focusing on language, and they're also focusing on content. And so I don't think we give our multilingual learners enough credit. Brenda popped up in the chat and said, I remember one of your challenges. Brenda, for those of you who don't know, who are tuning in, thank you for those who are trickling in. She's one of our colleagues at Morton East High School, who will be our next guest. By the way, another alum who I'm excited to have a cool conversation with. I remember one of your challenges was also an increase of students throughout the year. Students were coming from different parts of the country. Listen, we know that there is a copious amount, an incredible amount of newcomers coming into the country, whether it's from Mexico, from Guatemala, from El Salvador. I mean, they are coming. Tell us about that. Brenda brings up a really good point.
Yeah, as a bilingual EL teacher, I've had that experience not only at Morton East, but also at my previous school district at Urbana High School. And it is a challenge when you get new students in the middle of a semester and you've already done a project previously or you finished a unit in the past. It's not impossible to help them catch up, but it definitely presents a challenge to help them, join the classroom, acclimate to their new school, a new environment. And even though I do teach the class in Spanish, that's one class they have during their day that they have a teacher that speaks Spanish to them and is able to help them out. And we do have other courses, which is also another cool thing we have here at Morton East, to help them feel welcome at this school. Another challenge that presents with many students coming throughout the school year is space. I had a class that started off with 10 students, my bilingual civics class, and it grew to 23 students, and the capacity is 24. We do have another teacher in our district or in our building that also teaches the same course, but even her classes were getting full as well, and we were struggling with space. And once the classroom grows, it becomes a little more difficult to give the support that our students need. I was able to get an aide, which was really helpful towards the end of the semester, but nonetheless still very grateful to have an aide to help me out because it was many students with many needs. Even though we were doing it in learning in Spanish, it's still a challenging but fun environment.
And I could testify to that because teaching junior AP Lang with multiple rosters of ELL, MLL learners, it was a challenge. It was a challenge to teach to the rigor and also be sensitive to their language development and proficiency, but yet not water down the material either or lower our expectations. And in addition to that, creating those safe spaces, right? So we had so much going on and a lot to do. And I thank God for my co-teacher, who is incredible with those accommodations and just different strategies to help our kiddos move forward. But let's get to the crux of our theme today, which is alum. Okay, let's talk, Joy, right? So your class of what? You are still so itty bitty to me. Like, seriously, if you're like still in your 30s, to me, you're a baby. I swear. Like 20s, 30s, everybody's a baby to me until you hit the 40 mark. But your class of what?
2011.
2011. Oh my God.
2011.
Yeah, like seriously, I was finishing my first graduate degree. I was already in the classroom. So 2011. So let's take a look at the student joy. For those of us being able to tune in, you could see she gave me a couple of images and I grabbed a few. She's with my colleague who was her former teacher, Miss Rhodey. Tell us about this picture. How old were you? What year were you? What's happening?
So this picture, I was a senior, and that was actually the classroom next door to the classroom I currently teach in now. So that is so cool to me, like being able to come back and teach next door. Well, that's actually Brenda Lopez's classroom now, but I had the opportunity to, teach next to my former teacher, Marlo Rhodey, and this was senior year. I took the class legislative semester, which is actually similar to the class that I teach now, and where we had debates in class. We did a project that we actually do now where we create a bill and talk about social issues, economic issues. And in that picture, it was towards the end of the school year, like the last few days, which is why we're out of uniform. And yeah, so that's that picture. Definitely brings back a lot of good memories.
I love that. Brenda popping through here again, talking about shout out to Marlo. She's also a Morton alum. So, again, literally, this is why I put it as one of my themes for Sofia Speaks podcast with the LEC, because this is a pattern. Like, I've noticed that a lot of our colleagues are former alum. And I want to talk to you about that because I think that that's really important. Here's some data to back this up here. I was looking at a dissertation from a particular student who wrote on teachers of color return home to teach, and really did some crazy research. She was out of the University of Maryland, and she said the following: teachers of color also have been shown to display a stance that respects differences in students' communication and learning styles. And an increase in the number of teachers of color have been linked to decreases in achievement. In short, teachers tend to flock to communities they are familiar and known, that are familiar and known. Why the strong desire to teach in places close to home? Home is perhaps the most familiar place to us. The notion of home and the place where we were shaped as we grew up have a profound impact on our personhood. And because teaching, which is predicated on fostering relationships with students, translates into ways teachers forge connections, sharing the same community with students provides one familiar point of reference. I mean, can you speak to that, right? Like the fact that you are from those hallways, have you had those conversations with your students, and what kind of an impact did it really make?
Yeah, so one of the first things when I introduced myself to my students is I mentioned that I graduated from Morton, and I always tell them, class of 2011, that's when I graduated. I sat in the same classrooms as you did, walked in the same halls as you did as a student, but now I'm here as a teacher. And I always have my diploma on display in my classroom, on my desk.
Oh my
So
God.
my students know. I always make sure to let them know, like, hey, I graduated from here. I'm from here as well. And I think it's such a positive impact because my students have told me that they feel comfortable in this classroom. And that's such an honor when they tell me that. And they say, oh, I love coming to your class. It's comfortable here. I feel safe here. And, I think part of creating that environment is, that familiarity that we have, that connection that we have with each other, knowing that we are of a similar background and that we come from the same community. So I definitely see that as a positive. And I've even had a couple of students ask me, how do you become a civics teacher? And I was like, whoa, like,
Wow.
did I really have that much of an impact in our short period of time where, our class is a semester long and we do a lot within that semester. And, I'm happy that they feel one comfortable and then two inspired to want to become teachers as well. So like you said, I also see that pattern and I hope it continues.
Yeah, I love that. And for those of you who are tuning in, I'm going to show you another picture that Joy gave me. So here's Joy as a teacher. And just some background on our student demographics. We are a very large district of over 8,000 students, multiple campuses, and ours specifically is in Cicero, which is just outside the city of Chicago. We are Title I, and we are predominantly of a Latino student-based demographic. Many of our students are first generation, primarily from Mexico, which is where Joy is from, and which is where my father is from. And so, again, having those connections. So not only are you alum, okay, but you're Latina. Not only are you Latina, but you're from Mexico. Not only are you from Mexico, but you're first gen. And so you have so many connection points with many of our students. And we do have some Black student population. We do have some white students and all of that. But primarily it is Latino students. And so as women of color, right, it's very personal to us. And I cannot imagine how much more personal it is for you. I mean, do you have flashbacks? Do you remember yourself walking down the hallways? Do you get weirded out when you see construction year after year and you're like, "Ooh, the rooms didn't look like this," or "This really changed," or "This stayed exactly the same"? Like, do you have those moments? I'm just curious.
All the time, especially when I'm, with all these renovations, our school looks very different. I'm one of the few classrooms left or hallway left that hasn't been renovated. So my classroom still kind of looks like how it looked like when I was a student. But when I walk into the library, for example, our library is beautiful.
Mm.
It's such an amazing resource that we have. And now the students have laptops. And when I was there, we did not have laptops. So it definitely has changed and changed for the better. So I'm really happy about that.
I love that. And the fact that some of your students are like, hey, how do you become a civics teacher? That is really, really powerful. There was an article that I read too in the Washington Post that talked about how Black and Latino students are disproportionately suspended and expelled from school. They are referred to police in greater percentages. They're more likely to face low expectations and less likely to be placed in advanced courses or gifted programs. That was a 2021 article titled Some Families of Color Remain Weary of Returning to Classrooms as the New Year Begins. And so studies show and support, research shows and support that our students of color oftentimes are very leery of wanting to go back into the classroom because that was the place and space of a lot of their trauma of what this post article was referring to. And I say that to say this, that your work as an alum, just what you represent is very powerful, and it is very mirrors and windows, and it is such an opportunity for our students to see that, man, I can come back to the place where I learned. I can come back to the place where I went to high school. No, not all my experiences were negative. I saw teachers that looked like me, that were from my neighborhood. Listen, like, I'm loud and proud about teaching in the Morton community. Like, I didn't go to Morton East, but I live in the Morton district. And that to me is very special. I feel like that's a version of justice, that's a version of resistance, and that's a version of the work, right? Like, listen, I'm in your neighborhood. Like, I go to Tony's just like you. As a matter of fact, you all are the cashiers. Like, I literally saw one of my students the day before yesterday at Tony's when I was doing my grocery shopping. I saw my student Kate, and I call her Kate the Great, and she was ringing somebody up. And as I was going by with my car, I'm like, bye, Kate the Great. And she's like, Miss J. Like, and you know, and some folks are like, no, I don't want to, teach in the community because I want my privacy. I get that, right? But there's something cool, man. There's something special. Like, for me, I tell the kids, like, listen, like, I live in Berwyn, Cicero, Morton District 201. My son goes to Morton West, and all the girls are like, show me a picture of your son. I'm like, he has a girlfriend, but he is handsome. But it's that whole vibe, right? It's that whole connection of like, look, we're in community. Like, I am not over you, I am among you. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yep.
I'm with you. I'm alongside of you. And yes, I'm the expert in this space. Yes, I'm older than you. Yes, I have more lived experiences than you, but I was you and I live among you, and we're in this together. And I think that there's such power and agency that it gives the kids. Like, don't you think?
Oh, I totally agree. And I've had similar experience to you as well. Same thing, Tony's. One of my students rang me up and I didn't even recognize her because she had a mask on and had a hat on. And I saw her name tag. I was like, is that you, Anaí? And she's like, yes, miss, it's me. And I was like, oh, so excited to see, my students among our community. And I do, love, working and living in the community that I serve because it just makes it special, like being able to see my students and my students to see me,
Right.
just being here. So it's definitely a very special experience, I would say.
It is. And I would agree 1000%. Miss Lopez talking about in the chat, something unique in BIPOC communities is the collective bond. Ooh, that gave me goosebumps. We look out for each other without even having to say it. Your students can count on you because they see you as home, literally. Oh my gosh. Tears, 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 tears. It's so true. Like, we're familiar. ¿Tú me entiendes a mí? Like, we're familiar to them. And they don't see us as someone far removed from their environment, from their context, from what they have to go through. But yet we are with them. And that really, man, that really leverages our teaching because the buy-in is that much more closer to where we want them to be, right?
Yeah.
Brenda, bringing up a new point. What did you say? Go ahead. So you could read it this time as I take my sip of water.
Yeah, and they always hook you up on discounts and free goodies. That's also a perk.
I mean, you know that's true. When I be passing by the Starbucks drive-through window, I see one of my cutie patooties. Hey, Miss G. Hey, here's a little something from the bakery on me. I appreciate it because my daughter loves the cake pops, so they be always hooking me up with the cake pops. But again, right, there's something to be said about alum returning, right, and the impact that it has. Um, Studies show again, right, that many students of color don't want to return. And so what you are doing, let me reiterate, is something super super special. But you're not the only one. So I'm interested in what your opinion is. Why are so many Morton grads going back to the Morton community? Can you speak to that? Can you draw some like educated guess or assumption, because I'm flabbergasted. I mean, literally in every department and in every content area, you got a bunch like class of whatever to whatever to whatever. It's like, wow, all these alums. And to me, I think that that's really dope because you all are very educated. You all are very talented. You all have multiple degrees and endorsements. You can go anywhere, right? And many of you are bilingual. And that in and of itself is a hot ticket right now in the world of EDU. Why do you think so many more grads are returning?
I think the main reason why so many Morton grads return is the positive experiences that we had on Morton.
Okay.
Um, I for me personally, I had such a great experience, had so many great teachers that it made me want to go back. Although I didn't go back right away like other teachers have, I did, teach somewhere else first, and then I came back. Always wanted to come back. That was part of my professional plan. Was in a few years I'm going to come back to Cicero. I want to teach at Morton, but I need to gain some experience first.
Good.
And I think we all come back because it's home. We are very familiar with it, and we want to continue creating those positive experiences and create a positive environment for our students to help them, inspire them, encourage them to either become anything really. Educators great, part any kind of career, but overall just continue to create those positive and safe spaces for them. That's my main reason for coming back, is wanting to recreate and continue that positive safe space.
I love that. And guess what? You're addressing so many issues in the world of education that I care very deeply about, and that's the teacher pipeline. We have a very leaky teacher pipeline when it comes to a diverse teacher workforce. And what you and Ms. Brenda are doing, who I'll bring on next Thursday, is part of that work. That your representation, your mirrors and windows, your alum, your Latinas, you are from the neighborhood, and you're circling back and you're saying, I'm going to create this safe space for you because who knows? I might have some teachers in my midst. Yes. And you're creating and you're breaking down some of those unsafe environments and experiences that they could have had they not had teachers like you and Brenda. And that is part of the work. Then they'll circle back and they'll do what you're doing. I want to go back and I want to be a teacher and I want to teach a subject that I love, but I also want to be in a community that I'm familiar with and that I want to continue to nurture. And you build back that pipeline that really needs to be as diverse as we can make it. You've got a thumbs up here on Facebook Live. Do you know a Gilbert Davila?
Yeah.
Is that dad? Is that Theo? Who's that?
No, that's not my dad. He's not on social media.
Oh,
Just family member.
oh, family member. Because I saw Davila. I was like, is that Papi? Is that Theo? I don't know what's happening, but I just wanted you to know you got a thumbs up. um, let's see what Miss Lopez is saying. When your little sister called you to say you got the job,
Oh my goodness, that's one of my favorite memories, I would say.
tell me. Tell me about
So that day was so awesome because first of all, I got the call that I got the job. And at the time when I was applying to Morton East, my sister was a junior, I think, sophomore, junior, I don't recall exactly. And she was a student aide for Gamboa. So she would spend a lot of time upstairs in the office helping out. And one of the tasks they gave her that day was to tell her that I was going to be hired. So they called me and said, "Hey, is this Joycelyn Davila? Do you have a moment to speak?" And I said, "Of course." And they said, "Oh, we have a special message for you." And I was like, "Okay, this is sounds good. I hope it's good news." And it was my sister, and she said, "Hi, Joy. Will you be my teacher?" And well, she actually messed it up. She said, "Will you be my sister?" And then she's like, "I mean, teacher." And then I was like, "Of course, I accept the job offer." So it was definitely a really cool experience to be a teacher while my sister was also a Morton student. So that's pretty cool.
That is crazy. While your sister was a Morton student,
Hmm.
you got hired as a Morton teacher in a
Yeah.
place where you were a Morton student.
Yes.
I can't. Like, that is, like, legitimately, like, full circle. That
Yep.
is, like, out of control, powerful. And that's the heart of this session, this episode, is to really amplify the idea of, man, if we can and if we are able to, there's power in returning back to our alum and becoming that teacher that we need, that we needed, and to continue on this legacy of diversifying that teacher workforce, because we already know representation matters. So, speaking of the profession, what's your vision, right? What's your vision for the future professionally? Like, where does Ms. Davila want to go with her classroom, with her content area, with her vision?
So I would say I've been teaching civics for 4 years now. So possibly, maybe getting into teaching more different types of classes within social science area.
Okay.
Um, but also, I think one thing that I thought about doing sometime is becoming a coach. I do attend the like lunch and learns and stuff like that, or donuts and
Uh-huh.
discourse, and they're always a good time. I always leave with something, and I think one day I would want to do something like that. Provide knowledge and support to other teachers.
Ooh, I love that. So, being like an instructional coach
Yeah,
or something along those lines.
yeah,
And here's what's cool about really exploring different roles in the schoolhouse. You could always flux and flex back to the classroom if you want, right? It's
yeah.
just a matter of, the vacancies and things like that. Oh, we got a prophecy here. Joy Davila for biliteracy coordinator. When? The question is when. I love that. That is a good idea. The sky's the limit, right? Especially for the credentials that you have, for the experience that you have working with multilingual learners. You are a hot ticket right now, and so that would be super super cool. So, representation, we've been talking about it on and off, right, this whole episode. Why is representation still so important, not just in the classroom but on boards, power seats, school administration? Why is representation still so important to our growing diverse student population?
I think representation is still so important because we offer a really unique perspective, and it's valuable to have that perspective represented in the classroom, in board meetings, in administrator offices, because we offer the perspective of the experience that our students have. And without that perspective, I think, we're not serving our students as best as we can. So when we do have that representation, we can make better decisions for our students so that they can get the most support possible and the best experience possible. So I think it still matters, even though representation is there, and it's getting there. It's still important to continue, to hire teachers of color and to keep them there too, because I think that's also an issue is teacher turnover rate. Within the first few years of education, many teachers leave, and many teachers of color leave too. And I'm not going to lie and say, oh, I've never thought about it. I have thought
Right,
about it, especially early in my career, because it was difficult.
right.
And, or during the pandemic, that was a time where I was like, do I want to stay? Do I not want to stay? But then I think about that representation, and it matters, and it still matters to this day. And keeping, teachers of color in the classroom and getting into the board, because I think that's where representation kind of lacks. In
Mhm.
administration, it's there, but again, and I think it needs to increase as well. But it still matters.
Absolutely. And studies show and support that, um, you know, representation with teachers and with staff, it benefits all students. I mean, it really does. Even for non-students of color, they benefit from having a diverse teacher workforce. They, can lean into acceptance and tolerance and the breaking down of those misconceived notions and stereotypes that would infringe communities of color. And they could look at a smart, intelligent Latino educator or a Black educator or an Asian educator or an Indigenous educator and be like, whoa, those were misconceptions. My teacher is intelligent, compassionate, fun. And so again, and then as you say, in those different spaces, where power is being used, we need representation so that we can get those voices at those power seats so that we could redistribute some of that power and create more equitable outcomes. So yes, representation is still everything, and it can only benefit all our stakeholders that are involved, right? So we're heading towards the end. So I got a couple of things up my sleeve that I sent your way. So now we're going to engage in what I call fill in the blanks.
Okay.
Um, Definitely interested in what your thoughts were on some of these fill in the blanks here. I hate to say this. I know it's so crazy for me to say this, but summer is almost ending. Like, why? What happened? Wait,
Flew by.
what happened? Let me take a deep breath on that. Leading into my first fill in the blank. What I care to do before summer ends is.
Is to stop having work dreams. I've been having those lately. Do you know what I mean?
Really? Oh no. Like, are they bad ones or?
Yes. Even though I know I don't have those experiences because I have amazing students, I still have those work dreams. And I'm like, before summer ends, I need to stop having those work dreams.
Okay, well, we got to figure out a way to relax you before the end of the night. Maybe, pick up drinking some tea or something. But we got to get you more relaxed, light some candles, um, and just, try to think on something positive. Next, fill in the blank. What teachers need right now is.
More support.
Tell us. Tell us why.
I think that, especially after COVID, there was a lot of things that were uncovered, a lot of the issues that we have and have had in the past with education. And I think we just need more support and more now than ever, because, support from, our administrators, support from other teachers, support from just everyone so that we can give the best to our students.
Yeah, and I will add to that. Sorry, folks, there's a little bit of breaking up here. Internet issues, but we gonna get it right. Airways better get it right. Advocate for yourself. So this idea of listen, teachers on the airwaves, Joy and myself, we must continue to advocate for that support. We cannot assume that support will come flowing like a floodgate through our door. We need to continue to make some noise and really pull on the jackets of administration, of our colleagues, of our mentors, and really advocate. I'm such a huge proponent of that. Like, we cannot expect for folks to read our minds. It would be nice and it would be helpful for them to, for just the world, right? To just understand how much support and how many resources teachers need to actually get the job done and do it well. But unfortunately, those messages oftentimes fall to deaf ears. Listen, I'm getting crazy with this. Advocate for yourself, but I love it. Support, support. That's what teachers need right now more than ever. Absolutely. So that we could help our most important stakeholders, and they are our students. So speaking of students, your next fill in the blank. I want my students to leave my classroom every year feeling
Inspired.
I love that. Tell us why.
Well, I think, as much content and skills we teach our students, I think for me the biggest thing I want them to leave the classroom is feeling inspired that,
Mm,
that they can do anything, that, they're smart enough, that they're good enough to accomplish anything that they want to do, and they get that from the skills that they learn in the classroom. It's not that I want them to walk away knowing the First Amendment, even though it's important. I want them to walk away feeling inspired.
I love that. Inspired to be whatever they want to be, inspired to believe that they are capable, and inspired to believe that they deserve it,
Yep.
right? That they deserve every opportunity that is coming their way. They deserve it, and they truly deserve access to equal education opportunity and post-secondary advancement. Don't get us started, right?
Yep.
But I love that inspiration. And then here's the last one, and then I'll hit you with some rapid fire questions. Alum, if they get a chance and have the desire, should go back to teach at their home district because
Because our presence is important and impactful.
mm, it so is. Like that is such like a chip, a bargaining chip to have in your pocket. Like, look, I was from this hallway. Don't be getting crazy with me. Listen, I know it's tough. I know you're tired. I know it's finals week. Don't act like I haven't been there. I was under the same bell ringing in my ears and the same lunch cafeteria. Listen, I get it. And that is a very, very powerful position to be in for our students. And so uh, I would agree. I would agree 100%. Um, that if they do get that chance, that they should definitely come back. I student taught in my alumni. I went to East Leiden with our principal Gamboa, and I student taught at East Leiden in Franklin Park, Illinois. And I did apply for the English vacancy, but I didn't get it. And now I know why. Then I went to Little Village and the south side of Chicago, and you know my story very well. That's where my advocacy and justice journey began. And so I needed to be exposed to those particular issues, and I needed to be in that environment. As overwhelming as it was for me, that's all in the name of destiny. But teaching in my own neighborhood, again, I see the benefit and the power in that for our students. They feel safe with us. At least that is our hope. So, rapid fire round, so fun. You have no idea what I'm gonna throw your way. This or that. Ain't nobody know, right? You're like, oh gosh, what is Miss G doing? Yes, this is the fun part. It's super cutie. We love it. I'm gonna start with sports because I know you and your fiance, you be all up into some sports here and there with your friends and your family. I see you on IG, boo. So this I already know the answer to, but I always like to walk my friends into things that I know they're passionate about because it's like, why not? So, first one, Sox or Cubs?
Oh, like you said, you know the answer. White
Other
Sox. Go White
people.
Sox.
I mean, yeah, for those listening in on the airwaves of Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter, my girl got season tickets. She got like 20 million jerseys. Her and her man be at, you know, US Cellular Field like every weekend. Just kidding. But I mean, y'all about the Sox, right?
Yep, you're not wrong. I do have a lot of jerseys and merch and hats and everything. So
Chicago Southsiders. Do you go to the crosstown or what's it called when the Cubs and the Sox?
Yeah, so I've gone a few times already, but I haven't gone to Wrigley Field to watch that game, which I should soon. But it's a very fun time for sure.
So just so you guys know, for those who are not from Chicago, because folks listening nationally, there is a bit of some rivalry between the Chicago White Sox and the Chicago Cubs. There is a huge following and a huge gathering of loyalists. Either you are a diehard Cubbies fan or a diehard Chicago White Sox fan. And when they come together to play, sometimes it gets rowdy, right?
Yeah, it does, but I'm just watching,
You're
there
like,
for the
look,
vibes, there for the good vibes.
I'm just out here with one of my jerseys. I don't know why y'all throwing beer at each other, but I'm here to watch the game.
Yeah.
Okay. So Chicago Fire or Chicago Bulls?
Chicago Bulls.
Chicago Bulls, right? Bulls Nation. Dito. Every time I say Fire or Bulls, everybody picking the Bulls. Man, I guess there ain't no love for our soccer team. Okay. Super Bowl or World Cup?
Ooh, World Cup.
World Cup. Okay. So there we go. I mean, those soccer games are really exciting, though, like low key. And remember, this past school year, was it when Mexico was in the World Cup or yo no sé qué, they were
Yeah.
playing and all our students, like,
Oh, they were
totally
so into it.
disregarded. No, didn't most of us have to put it on the big screen? Like, I literally put it on the big screen because forget it. Everybody was watching their lap. And
Yep.
I'm like, okay, tell me how to get to the game because forget it. Okay, vamos, let's
Yep.
go.
I definitely did that too for my students because I was like, well, you gotta, they're watching it from their laps anyway, so you might as well put it on the screen. And we're like, okay, let's compromise. If you do a few more questions, then we can get the game on. And then they're like, all right, we'll do it. We'll do it. Let's
Right.
do the game.
They'll be all up in their work then. All right, cool. World Cup. All right, let's go to music category now. Peso Pluma or Bad Bunny?
Ooh, Bad Bunny.
Bad Bunny. Okay, so you've gone to a concert, right?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought because you be frequenting concerts and like all kind of festivals and you be out there. I love it. I'm like, I love to see it. I'm like, okay, Joy with her neon outfit. I'm not mad. Listen, you do you, and I'm gonna see you enjoy your life. It's awesome. Okay, salsa or mariachi?
Mariachi.
Mariachi, because you got to be true to your roots, right? Come on now,
Yeah.
we can't mess around, right? And me, I'm just this one big ball of confusion because I'm half salsa and half mariachi, so I be all confused all the time. Okay, although to Mexico's credit, I do want to do a pilgrimage back to Mexico. I was talking to the girls about that. Were you there at lunch? I was
Yeah.
talking to Janet. I was like, I want to go to Mexico. Can I be with your family? Because I have like distant relatives and they don't even know me. Janet's like, come with my family. I'm like, yes, I will. Anyways, I have no idea why I confessed that. It's fine.
Oh no, I was part of that conversation, and Janet and I were from like the same area in Mexico, so we're like, yeah, come.
I know. I'm like so like jelly. Y'all have such strong connections to Mexico, and I'm over here struggling. But hey, we can help each other out. I'm definitely gonna take y'all up on that for real one day. All right, last one in the music category, then we'll move on to food. Carol G or Alicia Keys?
Carol G.
Carol G is popping, right?
Yeah.
Dang, she is on fire with her pink hair and her beautiful face and her amazing lyrics. She's amazing. But Keys is on fire too.
Oh yeah, she's
She's
great
on
too.
a tour. Yeah, she's on a tour right now, and I'm not mad at her either. Okay, going into food, taquitos or tortas,
Oh, that's a hard one.
isn't it?
Uh, whew, probably tacos.
Me too. Seriously, I don't know. I feel like the tortas that I've had recently, it's like the bread is real thick and I don't even eat meat anymore. So it's like taquitos. Yes. Love me some tacos también. Horchata or Jamaica?
Horchata.
Horchata. Like
Yeah.
the classic, because now they have like all these flavors and
Yep, classic one. Just, the one that you get when you get your tacos. So
that's right.
having my big glass of horchata with my tacos,
Heck
perfect
yeah.
combo.
Isn't it delicious? And then with the
Yeah.
canela, a little bit of cinnamon. Woo.
Hmm.
I like mine cold. Do you like your horchata cold?
Yeah, super cold.
Super cold. See, we on the same wavelength. All right, last one in the food category: churros or flan.
That's also a tough one. Flan though. I like flan a lot.
Ooh, okay, the classic or different flavors?
Classic.
Okay, look at you, classic, simple girl. You are just how it was made in its original design. That's what you're gonna order. I love that. I'm down with that. Okay, so now we'll go into like more of some like deep philosophical thinking. What the world needs most right now is truth or compassion.
Ooh, ah, I would say compassion.
Ooh, love that. Tell us why.
I think compassion goes a long way. And I think right now, with a lot of, violence, unfortunately, that we've been seeing um, everywhere, compassion is important to have. And with compassion, you can, you know, provide more of a safe environment.
I love that. Absolutely. Absolutely. To really think about what the world needs is so important right now. Now, here's the last one. What I want to offer the world first is love or my teaching.
Oh, no, that's a tough one.
Woo!
Mm. Oh no, why do you make me choose?
That's
Um, I would say it kind of goes along with the previous question, love. I think,
love that.
love, if you have a loving person, environment, then the learning can happen. That's what they say when, your students can't learn unless they feel accepted, unless they feel, loved, and that comes first.
I love that. This idea of, man, love truly does, without running the risk of sounding a cliche, does make the world go around. And don't our students need it? They need love. The world needs love after going through so much suffering collectively and individually, um, as a people, right? As a human race. Um, Man, this was so fun. I am just so grateful that you were able to jump on this invitation this summer, taking out some time for us to share your story and to share your narrative. I'm so grateful for you. I see you. I elevate your work. I think you're doing great by our kids, and they are lucky to have you next year. And so, wishing you an incredible, amazing school year. I'm excited for you. May you find rest when you need it. May you push in when you have to. And may you continue to be those mirrors and windows for our kiddos. Thank you, Miss Davila. And I'll miss having lunch with you next year.
We have the same lunch.
Well,
So I will see you at lunch.
well, as you know, I did push out the announcement, but I don't know. Should I just pop it off right here in the last minute or two?
Oh.
Um, I took a leave of absence and I am a full-time fellow with the US Department of Education. So
Oh, congratulations.
thank
You'll be
you.
missed though, but I'm excited for your new opportunity.
I know. And listen, we'll be in touch. I'm actually meeting with Miss Ritz for dinner today. I'm gonna start doing my rounds so I can stay in touch with some of my favorites at Morton. But hey, duty calls. We've had this conversation at lunch, where you really motivated, encouraged me, and have told me, Miss G, just continue doing it. And so I wanted to publicly thank you for those lunch talks. They were very meaningful. And amen. This is for our people. I'm the only Latina in that cohort, and I'm the only one representing from the Chicagoland area. And I don't take that lightly. And I hope to do our school community proud.
Yeah, well, I'm excited for you. And like we keep saying, representation matters. So your presence in that experience is so important. And of course, I will miss you, but I know how to keep in touch with you. I have your number, you have my number, we follow
Yes.
each other. So I'm excited to see your journey. And thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be, one of your guests on your Sophia Speaks. And
Hey.
this is fun.
Yay, I'm so glad. Alegría, that's what I call you. Thank you again. We will be in touch and adelante.
All right.
And now for a second with Sofia Speaks. You think when you go to high school, do you ever say to yourself, I think I'll return as a teacher? For many, that's not the case for systemic reasons. Yet for some, despite the costs and the odds, return to their old stomping ground. Research points to folks living in their own communities, resembling the students that they serve, having a lasting impact that could lean into generations. Having student taught in my alum and now teaching in the community in which I live and my children attend school, it matters. It makes a difference, a twinkling of an impact. Sharing the same grocery stores, the same streets, the same potholes. I don't know. It does something to the connection, the bond between teacher and students. If you know, you know. So, to all my EDU justice warriors and soldiers in the fight, listen, as I take my own journey into the capital, Washington, D.C., man, let's continue to support each other. Let's continue to advocate for those needs that are so ever present and are vital to improving the state of education as we know it. So, to all my EDU justice warriors and soldiers in the fight, I see you, I feel you, and I am with you. Until next time, keep shining and getting into good trouble, necessary trouble. Please, if you haven't already, follow me on my medias, uh, Instagram, Sofia Speaks, Twitter at Mrs. G underscore P214, and I hang out on LinkedIn too. Please don't be a stranger. Thank you again for being with us on another episode of Sofia Speaks. Until next time, you better keep shining.